Hello, it's the third and final part of my Rey cosplay walkthrough today. Today I'm showing you how I made Rey's staff, which is probably my favourite part of this cosplay. If you want to see part 1 and 2 in which I make the rest of the costume, then you can do so up here and they will also be in the description below. But if you want to see how I made Rey's staff from Star Wars The Force Awakens, then you are in the right place. The staff started life as a white PVC pipe. This is all I have left of it. I wanted to use a pipe because it was light and also because I wanted to add a coupling to the staff so that I could take it apart and make it more portable, like this. There are downsides to using a coupling, the main one being that if I'm not paying attention the staff can get a bit of a bend in it, so I have to either tighten the coupling or reattach it. But overall I'm glad that I decided to use a coupling because the staff is quite large. So the pipe I used is 34mm in diameter and I got it in a hardware store and I got the coupling in the same place as well. The pipe was £2.49, so really not a lot of money. The first thing I did was find a diagram of the staff. I found one on Pinterest and I'll link to it below. It looks a bit like this. I printed that out at the size that I wanted the staff to be, which is 10cm taller than me. Here it is. If you are going to make Rey's staff, I would very much recommend printing out a full-size diagram of it, because you can use it to measure how big you want different bits to be, and also you can tick stuff off as you do them, which is useful because there are a lot of little bits to this staff and it can get a bit confusing. And once I had the diagram, I used that to measure and cut the pipe with a saw. I took into account that the two end pieces go past the end of the pipe, so you want the pipe to be slightly shorter than the staff will be. And also because I was adding a coupling, I had to take that into account when I was measuring the pipe as well. I put the coupling here on the staff, which isn't exactly in the middle, but it's more in keeping with what Rey's staff actually looks like. And then after I'd cut the pipe and attached the coupling, it looked like this. I made most of the things on this staff out of craft foam. I used white craft foam, it's very cheap. I could have used black craft foam, that might have been more sensible. So I'll start with the two ends of the staff. These are just 3 circles of craft foam glued together and then 3 slightly smaller circles glued on top, and then again and then again. The bottom circles I made into rings so that these end pieces would sit on top of the staff. And after I had done both of these, I put a little bit of polyfiller on the ends to make them smoother and more domey. For the cogwheel, which doesn't look like a cogwheel on the diagram, but it is, I printed a picture of a cogwheel. I went for a 6-spoked one, and then it's 4 layers of craft foam glued together. I cut a hole in the middle so that it would fit on the staff. Then there's these ridged pieces, 2 of these. You can see on the diagram here that on Rey's staff they are tapered, but I just did them to be flat. These are just strips of craft foam wrapped around the staff and then teeny tiny strips of craft foam added on top. For this fin bit, I started with a hexagon shape and cut that out of craft foam 4 times to stick together, and then on top I added 4 circles, getting slightly smaller each time. Then the fins are just 6 long strips of craft foam tapered at one end. Then there's this bit, which I'm calling flat piece with buttons. This is another strip of craft foam which is wrapped around the pipe. I then cut out some pieces. As we go round, we have a square bit cut out near the top, and then we have a long rounded piece, and then a small circle near the bottom, and then another long rounded piece. And as you can see here in the cavities left by cutting the long rounded pieces, I placed a smaller long rounded piece with 3 pieces of craft foam glued on top. And now we have some cones. I started with these 3, and it's worth noting that the middle one is smaller than the other 2. I used a website which I'm going to link to below, which calculates the measurements you need to make a flat top cone if you put in these 3 lengths. Basically for each cone on the staff I made 1 deep cone and 1 shallow cone which attaches to the bottom upside down. And then there are these slightly more complicated ones, although I just made them by attaching 3 cones to each other. So there's an inner cone and then 2 outer cones. There's also a flat piece added to the bottom and then loads of little strips of craft foam added on top. And then I got to the fun bit, which is attaching all of the pieces to the staff and then gluing them on. You can see here how I glued all of the fins to the staff. The fins were a little flimsy at this point, but after the staff was spray painted it was a lot stronger. I can now lift the staff with the fins. For all of these ridged areas I used this cord, which is 2mm cotton piping cord. I wrapped it around the staff, gluing it every now and then, although not that much because the spray paint will make it very solid. And then the staff looked like this. You can see that I pre-painted the pieces with black acrylic paint, just roughly, so that when spray painting it wouldn't be so difficult to get good coverage and I wouldn't miss bits. Here you can see me spray painting the staff. I used the kind that you use to spray paint a car bumper. It has a bit of texture to it, which is really nice, and this is what the staff looked like at the end. I loved this bit because it immediately went from looking like a lot of bits of craft foam on a pipe to looking like a staff. And also the spray paint covered a multitude of sins, so Thank you, spray paint. Next is the handle. For this I used bits of brown leatherette, the same that I used for the belt and the bracer, and also bits of bandage, the same that I used for the arm wraps. And they're just wrapped and glued around the pole, and I weathered them by dabbing black and brown paint on them with a dry brush. And that's the same method I used for weathering the staff, although just with brown paint. And I didn't do this as much as I perhaps should have done, because I just like how the staff looks already. We're nearly done. The last thing is the strap. I used a piece of brown webbing for this, and these bag clips I already had on an old bag strap. Essentially you assemble the strap by attaching one end of the webbing to the middle bar of this rectangular bit in the middle, and then you thread the first clip through, bring the strap back through the rectangular bit, and then sew the other clip to the other end of the webbing. I used a bag strap that I already had as a guide because otherwise I would have been lost. And then the strap attaches to the staff here and here using strips of brown leatherette and D-rings. You can see here I have 2 strips of leatherette with a D-ring between them, and I join them at each end to a strip of leatherette with snap fastenings on. You can see me assembling them here, and I also weathered the strap with black paint before attaching them to the staff. So that's the staff. I hope that kind of made sense. If you do have any questions or comments, then please leave them below, and I'll leave a list of the materials I used and the links I have mentioned in the description below. I'm really happy with the staff and how it turned out. It's not entirely screen accurate, but I think it looks good. Thank you for joining me for these videos about my Rey cosplay. I hope they have been useful or interesting in some way. If you want to see part 1 and 2, then you can do so below me here. And if you want to visit my website or subscribe to my channel, then you can do so beside me here. Let me know if you have any requests for future cosplay, craft and baking videos. But for now, I hope you have a great day, and I will see you soon.